What's up, guys, and welcome back to Waggle Friends English. Today we're going to do part 2 of phrasal verbs that have become a noun related to shopping.
Or adjectives. So phrasal verbs are one of those tricky things that we have in the English language where you have a verb and a preposition together that functions with an entirely different meaning than the original root verb or that preposition. And you can't take out the preposition, you can't split it up or take out one of those words, you have to have them together in a sentence. Sometimes you could put its object right between the two words, but you have to use the whole phrase in its entirety. Now, sometimes we use those so often that we just decide to make them adjectives and nouns as well. And so this is what this video is about. Shopping has a whole lot of phrasal verbs that became nouns and adjectives. So that's what we're going to do part 2 of today.
Yeah, part 1, we focused mostly on the prices and the sales event. Today, we're going to focus more on the physical things in the store, physical places, and shopping preferences.
So let's get to it.
So the first section we're going to talk about is the physical things that are in the store. So a very good one that is a classic vocabulary term to learn at a shop is the checkout.
That's where you check out your items.
So there's a phrasal verb and the noun in the same sentence. You check out the items at the checkout.
But strangely enough, the phrasal verb meaning check out that can also apply to people or to cool things to see. That doesn't apply here. You can't say that you're going to check out a checkout. You don't do that. So specifically as a noun, checkout can only work as a place in a store where you check out items to pay for them.
The next one is cutout, like a cutout.
So a cutout is like a kind of a weird and somewhat cheesy thing to do in America nowadays.
Yeah.
But what it is they take a picture of somebody or something and they blow it up really big, print that on like cardboard or some kind of plastic, and they cut it out, like laser or by hand, however they want to do it. In sales and stores, in places that they want to show a special, they'll have cutouts there all the time. So cutout of the product, cutout of the brand name, cutout of the person or personality that mainly promotes the brand.
Yeah.
So cutouts are definitely a big thing that you see at stores.
Yeah, I think part of it is to like bring it to the customer, like to get the person or brand or whatever like outside of a wall and get it more three-dimensional.
Right. It's probably cheaper than a mannequin.
Yeah, probably.
So the next one is giveaways. So this comes from the phrasal verb give away. And then we add an S because we actually treat the noun form of this as a count noun.
Right. As a phrasal verb, you could say, don't just give it away, you should charge money for that. Or as a noun, you can say, how about we use these candles as giveaways?
Right. So this is something where you might have a raffle ticket sale or some kind of fundraiser thing, or maybe it's just random giveaways, surprises for customers chosen at random as they come to a sales event. You're going to see this term on commercials, especially around the end of the year where they're trying to push out the old inventory and bring in the New Year's inventory.
Yeah, and normally you do see it in a plural form, which is really weird because it's a Y with the plural form that it does not change.
Right, but it's because it came from a phrasal verb.
Right.
We shoved it together to make it a compound noun, and then here we go.
Here we are.
English does not make sense.
The next one, kind of like a giveaway, is a handout. And a handout is something that, like a flyer or something kind of has information on a sale, something where somebody puts something in your hand so that you can be able to read it or get information about it.
Your teacher will hand out their papers or assignments. That's the phrasal verb meaning. So when you give a handout, you're also giving out some kind of information, whereas a giveaway is some kind of prize. It's something everybody wants. People don't necessarily want handouts.
No, there is actually another meaning of handout that goes along with this, which is a handout is something that the government may give a person if they're poor or disadvantaged somehow. And a lot of people, they will say the phrase, I don't want any handouts. Like, don't help me because you're just helping me because of my position that I'm in, not because you actually care about me. And so they'll say, no, don't give me any handouts.
You see this a lot in American movies when the main character is very prideful. Something bad happens to them. Somebody tries to come help them and they say, I don't want any handouts. Yeah. You know, that's very common. The next one we're going to talk about is a setup. Now, a setup we use as a noun. It can be used as a verb, like a setup table, a setup cloth, a setup event. But a setup is basically from set up.
It means to set something up for a presentation as a verb. And so when it's constructed, it is the setup or a setup.
So you might hear this a lot with theater, where they do like a setup for shows that travel, for events that travel, where they do a play that travels. People that are vendors who set up at vendor events, they use it all the time. They refer to their 10 by 10 foot booth space as their setup. That means your tent, your tables, your chairs, your tablecloths, your stands, your boxes, your displays, all of that is included in setup.
Even this around us, our background and our lights and our bookshelf and all that stuff, this is considered our setup.
Yes, but some people want to refer to their home as their setup. So sometimes in slang, we'll refer to someone's setup. It's like, wow, they've got a fine setup over there.
Look at them.
Yeah, they've got a great setup, or their setup for success would be phrasal verb that we use, but we might also use it as a noun in that way as well.
The next section is talking about physical places at the store. So those were some physical things that you might find in the store, like a checkout, but this section is specifically talking about locations inside of the store. So you might find something like the layaway part of the store. If you sneak around to the back, you might find a section that is marked layaway, where people lay away, that's the phrasal verb, or put aside items that people have bought on layaway.
Yeah, they haven't paid for it yet, or they're paying in installments. They're paying in little bits of money in order to get up to the full amount before they can take it home.
Right, and so you got to store those things somewhere, and so you get a physical location, label it layaway. That's where you can find those items.
That's the layaways, where you put the layaways that people need to lay away to pay for the item. All right, so similar to setup is a pop-up. Now, pop-up shop is something kind of newish in our area now. We're starting to get these pop-up shops that happen. We use as an adjective, namely here. But what it is somebody who owns a physical business location will invite other local businesses to display something on a shelf or on a wall in their business. And they put out a big event, lots of handouts and pamphlets and stuff, lots of social media strategy in order to advertise to everyone to come check out this pop-up shop for just a couple of weeks that has many different businesses displayed so that people can buy gifts for Christmas or something like that. That happens a lot in the fall in America right now.
Yeah, it's a place where it's a shop, but it's pop-up, so you set it up and then after the event, you tear it down.
It's going to be gone very soon. Like the main business will be there, will remain there. All the other businesses, like a one-time event for the year or something. And it will probably be different businesses the next year.
Yeah, which is kind of why they're exciting, because you don't know what you're going to get is kind of the fun part about them.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of COVID, there have been more and more new locations in a store, and one of them is pickup. You can find this even in a pharmacy. That's a normal place to find it.
We call it drive-through if it's a restaurant, because you're driving through to get your meal, but it's pickup. I guess because the order has been submitted beforehand. Yeah. That's probably what it is.
Or even if you go inside the store, you can still pick up your medicine at the pickup counter.
But again, that order was sent in previously. Right, so I wonder, that's probably the logic.
Another thing that's become much more common is a grocery pickup. You can order ahead of time on an app. You can drive to the grocery store, park in the parking lot, and then text them that you're here, and they will put groceries in your car. That's the grocery pickup or grocery pickup line.
Right. So if you ever go to America, the pickup line parking spaces are often open. Do not park there. You will be in trouble. Likewise, you have the drop-off, which is the place where goods are dropped off. Maybe these are donation items. There's donation drop-offs all over whenever there's donation place nearby. You could also drop off groceries. You can drop off gifts. You can drop off all kinds of stuff in terms of the phrasal verb, but for the noun form, we call it a physical location, the place where centrally things are dropped off.
Right. And maybe 20 years ago, this would also be a location at a pharmacy where you drop off the physical sheet that you got from the doctor that says, this is the medicine that I need, and you would drop off the medicine at the pharmacy, and it'd take forever. So you'd walk around the grocery store and you go up to the pickup counter to pick your medicine back up. But that's not as common now.
Feels like a long time ago.
The next one is passerby. And this is kind of an older term, more formal term. But the idea is a person that's walking by and that maybe comes into your shop. So this is a passerby, a person that's been passing by that comes into your shop.
Yeah, they didn't intend to come to your shop. They didn't plan to come into your business, but they're called a passerby because they were passing you by and then they decided to come in. Also, we still call them a passerby if they continue walking.
Yeah.
In the plural form, confusingly, is passersby.
And instead of passerby, that we could say foot traffic, which is a much more idiomatic expression to say passerby.
Yeah. The next one is turnout. So when this business has done all this work in order to get people to come out, the amount of people that come to the sales event is called the turnout.
And obviously, all businesses want a big turnout to say, hey, we're expecting a big turnout, or we had a big turnout. That's normally the adjective we will use in front of turnout because that's the expectation, that's the hope. Because a big turnout means that there was a lot of foot traffic.
We refer to car traffic as just traffic. So when we mean lots of people or a big crowd, if it's a good thing, we'll say a big turnout.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if it's kind of, we want a more general term, not good or bad, we'll just say foot traffic.
Yeah. The next section is about shopping preferences. So we've talked about the physical locations, we talked about prices in the last video, but this time we actually get to talk about some things that you prefer to buy when you're shopping.
So for example, you might have a go-to brand that you go to for your jeans or your purses or your shoes, something that is just your go-to. You can count on it being a solid product and you can count on it being a certain price. So a go-to brand, you hyphenate this one. Make sure you hyphenate it because go-to together doesn't mean anything. People will think it's an acronym. So you definitely want to hyphenate this one. If you're answering somebody and it's clear in context what you're talking about, you can also use as subject complement, like that's my go-to.
Like that's my usual, or that's what I normally get. The next one about shopping preferences is throwback. And throwback is a way to say, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, this was very fashionable. And now, after a while, it became not fashionable until you have a throwback item or maybe a throwback sale where you take those things and you try to, bring them to the present once more.
Yeah, so interestingly, this started with vintage items. So eventually something that's vintage becomes cool again.
Yeah.
So usually with the grandkids, it becomes cool again. But what's interesting to me is that stores have tried marketing by calling things throwback sales, which just means that this is an item that they put on the shelf that was out there 3 years ago. So they've shortened the time that something becomes cool again, but what they're trying to do is just get it out of their back rooms or get it out of their warehouses. But it's funny because they call it a throwback sale.
Yeah.
So the next one is a comeback. It's kind of along the same ideas, but it's more like how marketers want to use throwback. Comeback means something that's just from short time ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope in comeback versus like throwback is like, hey, remember that time where we did that one thing? Yeah, that was kind of cool. Like, remember that time where everybody's wearing bell-bottom jeans? Man, that was cool. But comeback is like, oh, like there's a lot of people that are doing this now.
So it's making a comeback. It's trendy again, is what it means.
Yeah, exactly. So last one that we're going to talk about today is a knockoff. And these are very
disappointing.
Very important to know because you can buy something that you thought was extremely expensive only to actually get it and figure out that it was actually just a knockoff.
Yeah, like if you ever have bought technology from somebody on the side of the road, it's probably a knockoff.
Yeah.
A knockoff can be a thing. Like you can say it as a very rude term, like, oh, that's just a knockoff or such a knockoff. Yeah. That's something we say a lot. That's such a knockoff. But we also have a way that we use it with brands. We can say, oh, that's a knockoff brand.
Yeah.
So you can use it as a noun or an adjective. Just make sure if you intend to use it as an adjective, make sure you name the noun so it makes sense.
Yeah, and just be careful using it because it is not a very welcoming term. If you're coming up to a vendor and saying, hey, this kind of looks like a knockoff of this other person's brand. That's not a very nice thing to say.
That's it, guys. This is part 2 of phrasal verbs of shopping that have become nouns and adjectives. So there's been a lot of them in the last 2 videos.
Again, like we've said many, many times, the goal of these videos is not to make sure that you memorize 20, 40 words in a 15 or 20-minute video. The goal of these videos is to show you that there are some words that are very, very complicated to learn. Like you guys have noticed through these words that some of them have hyphens, some of them don't have hyphens. The point is to stretch your vocabulary, not be the sole source of that vocabulary.
Our goal is that you're going to hear an American commercial about a sales event and you're going to be like, hey, I know those words. Like that would be awesome. Because layaway or cutout would be kind of strange to see. Blowout sale, that would be like, logically, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. So these are some terms that we wanted to bring up so that you guys can know them and recognize them as you experience and take in American English.
Yeah, and the grammar rules that go with them are really important because like you said before in the last video, if you start looking at these words, give away, give verb, away preposition, then you might think that you can treat it like a verb or like a preposition. But in these cases, you need to treat most of these like nouns. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Yeah, it is weird. It's like checkout versus boop.
But it's just kind of fun. A fun name. It's like there
pop-up shop. All right. What? Oh, I did it with the right hand too.
Literal right hand.
Literal right hand. Okay, you ready?
No. Yes.
Okay, seriously.